My mom gave my sister my spare key and moved her into my house while I was at work. So I called the cops, and now she's in handcuffs. I need to get this absolutely insane story off my chest because I'm still processing how everything went down. This is about how my own family tried to literally steal my house and how karma came back to destroy them so completely that they're now begging me for help. Grab some popcorn and settle in, because this gets absolutely wild, and the ending is pure justice. First, let me give you the complete background so you understand why this hit so hard, and why what happened next was so incredibly messed up. This isn't just some family drama. This is about years of built-up resentment and entitlement finally exploding. I, 28 male and growing up, we were struggling hard. Dad bounced when I was 12, leaving mom with 3 kids and mountains of debt that seemed impossible to climb out of. I'm the oldest. Then there's my sister Jessica, 26 female, and my brother Tyler, 24 male. While mom was working 2 jobs just to keep the lights on and food on the table, I was grinding my rear end off from day one. Started working at 14, doing landscaping, warehouse work, moving furniture, whatever I could get my hands on. In high school, I was that kid who worked weekends and summers while everyone else was having fun at parties and hanging out at the mall. Taught myself everything about construction, got into project management through sheer determination, studied for my PMP certification while working full-time at a lumberyard, making barely above minimum wage. The path wasn't easy, guys. Took me 6 long years of community college and night classes to get my construction management degree because I was paying my own way through everything. No student loans because I couldn't qualify, no help from family because there wasn't any money to give. Every single semester, I'd save up $2,800 for tuition, books, and fees. Lived on cheap ramen, peanut butter sandwiches, and whatever was on sale at the grocery store. Drove a beat-up 2004 Toyota Camry that broke down at least once a month and cost me a fortune in repairs. The grind was absolutely real, guys. While my friends were partying in college, I was working 60-hour weeks during the day and studying for certifications on weekends and evenings. Missed countless parties, dates, vacations, social events. Basically everything that makes college fun. But it paid off in the end. Fast forward to now and I'm pulling solid money, got my own place, a sweet 3-bedroom house with a 2-car garage and workshop, 2 completely paid-off vehicles, a 2020 Silverado and a vintage motorcycle I'm restoring, and about $78,000 in savings and investments. My sister Jessica is the complete opposite of everything I represent. This girl has never worked a real job in her entire life, and I mean never. She's one of those Instagram influencer types with maybe 4,000 followers who genuinely thinks she's some kind of celebrity. Lives with her on and off boyfriend Devin, who sells random stuff online and calls himself an entrepreneur, but has never made more than $200 in a month. Bounces between friends' couches when they inevitably fight, and constantly hits up family members for money, for everything from rent to gas to food. She's attractive, I'll give her that much, but dumber than a bag of rocks and entitled beyond any reasonable belief. The girl thinks the world owes her something just for existing and looking pretty. Has never paid for her own phone bill, car insurance, or really any bill for that matter. Always has some excuse about why she can't work. The jobs are beneath her, the managers don't appreciate her potential, the hours don't work with her lifestyle, whatever. Tyler's not much better, but he's significantly less malicious than Jessica. Kid's been bouncing in and out of college for 6 years now, changing majors every single semester like he's shopping for clothes. Started with business administration, then switched to communications, then film studies, then graphic design. Now he's doing digital marketing at community college. Mom's been paying his tuition, rent, car payment, insurance, phone bill, groceries, literally everything. He's never held a job longer than 4 months because the managers don't understand his creative vision or the workplace environment stifles his potential. Here's where it gets really messed up and you'll understand why I was so angry. Mom enables both of them like crazy. Always has, probably always will. When I was 16 working 35 hours a week while maintaining a 3.8 GPA, she'd lecture me about family comes first if I couldn't loan Jessica money for whatever ridiculous thing she wanted that week. When Tyler crashed his car because he was texting while driving, his 3rd accident by the way, Mom took out a personal loan she couldn't afford to buy him another one. When Jessica got evicted for not paying rent for 3 months straight, Mom let her move back home and didn't charge her a single penny. But me? When I needed $600 for a certification exam that would guarantee me a promotion and raise, I had to literally beg and promise to pay it back with interest within 30 days. When I wanted to take advanced placement classes in high school that would help me get into better colleges, I had to pay all the fees myself while working nights at a restaurant. The message was crystal clear. I was the responsible one, so I didn't need or deserve help. They were the screw-ups, so they deserved all the support and assistance. 3 months ago, I finally achieved my dream and bought my house. Not some tiny starter apartment or condo. A real house in a nice neighborhood with good schools and low crime rates. 3 bedrooms, 2.5 bathrooms, attached 2-car garage, workshop space in the basement, decent-sized yard with mature trees. I saved up $55,000 for the down payment over 4 years of living like a monk. The mortgage is $1,950 a month, and I can handle it easily with money left over for savings and fun. This place is my absolute sanctuary. I've got my gaming setup with a custom-built PC and multiple monitors, a home office for my side consulting work that brings in extra income, a workshop where I restore vintage motorcycle parts and work on projects, everything organized exactly how I want it. Every single thing in that house was bought and paid for by me, chosen by me, arranged by me. When I had my housewarming barbecue and invited the family over to celebrate, the reactions were telling. Mom kept talking about how lucky I was and how some people just get all the breaks in life, completely ignoring the years of sacrifice and hard work that got me there. Jessica spent the entire time taking selfies in different rooms and asking if she could borrow the place for Instagram photo shoots with her friends. Tyler was more interested in my 70-inch TV and PlayStation 5 than actually celebrating my accomplishment. That should have been my first major red flag that trouble was coming. About 7 weeks ago, Jessica's latest drama exploded in the most spectacular fashion possible. She'd been staying with Devin in his studio apartment, which his parents pay for because he's 25 and has never had a real job. But apparently his parents discovered that Jessica had been systematically stealing packages from neighbors and selling the contents online for quick cash. We're not talking about accidentally grabbing the wrong package here. She was literally following delivery trucks around the complex, taking packages from doorsteps, and then posting the contents on Facebook Marketplace and eBay. Devin's parents found out when a neighbor knocked on their door looking for a missing package containing expensive electronics, and Devin's mom found the items in Jessica's car. Devin's parents gave him an ultimatum on the spot. Jessica leaves immediately and permanently, or they cut off his rent money and he gets evicted. Devin chose his monthly allowance over his girlfriend, leaving Jessica scrambling for somewhere to crash. She tried her usual rotation strategy, bouncing between friends' couches, reaching out to old hookups, even tried to charm her way into staying with some random guy she met on a dating app. Nothing stuck, because Jessica has a talent for burning bridges faster than she can build them. She's the type of person who overstays her welcome, eats all your food, brings random people over without asking, and generally makes your life miserable within 48 hours. She moved back in with Mom temporarily, but that arrangement lasted exactly 10 days before it imploded. See, Mom's been dating this guy Richard for about a year now, and he's actually a really decent person. Works as a master electrician, has his life completely together, treats Mom well, and doesn't put up with nonsense. But he has absolutely zero tolerance for Jessica's behavior. When Jessica brought random guys over at 2 a.m. for business meetings, and I use that term very loosely, left suspicious white powder residue in the bathroom, and stole $180 from Mom's purse to buy new clothes, Richard laid down the law. He gave Mom a clear ultimatum. Either Jessica goes permanently or he does. Mom chose Richard. Honestly, the smartest decision she's made in years. So Jessica was officially out of options and facing actual homelessness for the first time in her life. That's when I got the phone call that would change everything and set this whole nightmare in motion. "Hey, big brother." Jessica's voice was all sweet and fake, using that manipulative tone she'd perfected over the years. "I'm in a really tough spot right now, and I was hoping my incredibly successful brother could help his little sister out during a difficult time." I knew exactly where this conversation was heading before she even finished her sentence. "What do you need, Jess?" "Well, I just need somewhere to crash for a couple weeks while I get back on my feet and figure things out. I've got some really promising modeling opportunities lined up and several potential job interviews, so it would just be super temporary until—" "No. What? You didn't even let me finish explaining the situation. I don't need to hear the rest of your pitch. The answer is no. You're not staying at my place under any circumstances." She immediately switched to victim mode, which was her standard operating procedure when she didn't get her way. "I can't believe you're being so mean and heartless. I'm your sister. I'm literally homeless and you won't even help me. You're homeless because you made a series of terrible choices that led to this situation. That's not my responsibility to fix." "So, You have 3 whole bedrooms. You're being completely selfish with all that space. I patiently explained that one bedroom is mine, one is my office and gaming room where I work and relax, and one is my workshop storage where I keep thousands of dollars worth of tools and motorcycle parts. There was no guest room because I specifically didn't want long-term guests. The whole point of buying my own place was to have my space that I controlled completely. Fine, whatever. I'll sleep on the couch then. I promise I'll be super clean and quiet and helpful around the house. I'll cook and clean and do laundry and… Jessica, absolutely not. You've never been clean or quiet a single day in your life. Remember when you stayed at Tyler's apartment for one weekend and trashed it so badly he lost his entire security deposit? That's when she started the waterworks. The fake tears, the trembling lip, the whole dramatic performance she'd been perfecting since childhood. I thought family was supposed to help each other through tough times. When you needed help growing up, we were always there for you. When? When exactly were you or anyone else there for me? Because I remember working my rear end off while you guys got everything handed to you on a silver platter. She hung up on me with a dramatic sob. Exactly 25 minutes later, my phone rang again. Mom's number. Michael, I just spoke with Jessica, and she told me about your conversation. She's really struggling right now and could use some family support. I know she's struggling, Mom, and I offered to help her look for an affordable place and even loan her deposit money if she needed it. But she's absolutely not staying at my house. She just needs somewhere temporary while she gets back on her feet. You have all that extra space just sitting there empty. It's my space that I worked incredibly hard for and saved up to buy. Why can't Tyler help her out? Tyler's place is way too small for 2 people. Tyler has a 1-bedroom apartment that Mom pays $800 a month for. What about Richard's place? They could stay there temporarily. Richard absolutely doesn't want her there after everything that happened with the stealing and the drugs. Smart man. I don't want her there either for the exact same reasons. Mom tried every guilt trip in the book. Family sticking together through hard times. How disappointed Dad would be in me if he could see how I was treating my sister. Seriously, how I was becoming cold and heartless just like him. I stood absolutely firm. Jessica was not moving into my house under any circumstances, end of discussion. I thought that conversation had settled the matter once and for all. Boy, was I incredibly wrong about that. Last Tuesday, I came home from a particularly long day at a job site around 6:45 p.m., completely exhausted and looking forward to a quiet evening. I immediately sensed something was seriously wrong the moment I pulled into my driveway. First major red flag. My front door was completely unlocked, and I religiously lock that door every single time I leave. Second red flag. There were unfamiliar smells coming from my kitchen and sounds coming from upstairs that definitely shouldn't have been there. I walked into my living room and nearly had a complete heart attack. Jessica was sprawled across my leather couch in tiny shorts and a crop top, casually painting her nails bright pink while watching Netflix on my 70-inch TV like she owned the place. There were takeout containers scattered across my expensive coffee table, makeup products covering every surface, and her clothes draped over my furniture like she'd been living there for weeks. "Hey, big brother," she chirped without even bothering to look up from her nails. "Hope you don't mind. I ordered Thai food for dinner." "I got you some pad Thai too. It's sitting in the kitchen getting cold." "What the absolute heck are you doing in my house?" "Oh, Mom gave me the spare key from your kitchen drawer. She figured you'd eventually come around and see reason once you saw how much I really needed this place." I immediately stormed into the kitchen, and it looked like a tornado had hit followed by an earthquake. Dirty dishes everywhere, takeout containers scattered across the counter, my nice granite countertops completely covered in her makeup products and hairstyling tools. She'd eaten most of my carefully planned meal prep for the entire week and left the empty containers scattered around like garbage. But that wasn't even the worst part. Upstairs was a complete disaster zone. She'd completely taken over my workshop storage room, carelessly shoving all my expensive tools and vintage motorcycle parts into random corners to make space for her makeup station, which she'd set up on my pristine workbench. Her clothes were literally everywhere, hanging on my restoration equipment, thrown on the floor, stuffed into boxes that contained irreplaceable parts I'd inherited from my grandfather. I found her professional ring light, set up in what used to be my carefully organized workspace, clearly planning to use my house as her personal photo studio for whatever sketchy content she was creating online. "Get out of my house, right now." "Mikey, just relax and calm down. It's only temporary until I get back on my feet and find my own place. A few weeks maximum, I promise." "I already told you no. You can't just break into my house and move in without permission." "I didn't break in. Mom gave me the key, so it's totally legal." Mom doesn't live here and has absolutely no right to give you access to my house. She rolled her eyes dramatically and let out an exaggerated sigh. God, you're being so incredibly dramatic about everything. It's not like I'm hurting anything or causing problems. I'll totally help with bills and cleaning and cooking and stuff. You don't have a job. How exactly are you going to help with bills when you have zero income? I've got some really promising modeling shoots coming up next week, and Devin might take me back if I play my cards right. That's when I noticed she'd been systematically going through my refrigerator and pantry, not just eating my food. She'd consumed almost everything I had planned for the entire week, including expensive organic ingredients I'd bought for specific recipes and meal prep. Pack up all your stuff and get out of my house. Right now. I'm not going anywhere. Mom said I could stay here, and that you'd eventually see reason. Mom doesn't own this house. I do. My name is on the deed and the mortgage. Get out immediately or I'm calling the police. Jessica actually started laughing like I told the funniest joke she'd ever heard. You're not going to call the cops on your own sister. Stop being such a drama queen and acting like this is some huge deal. So I pulled out my phone and dialed 911 right there in front of her. The laughter stopped immediately, and her face went completely pale. 911, what's your emergency? I'd like to report someone who's illegally entered my home and is refusing to leave when asked. Jessica started panicking and frantically waving her hands. Wait. You can't actually do this? I'm family. This is insane. I already told you to leave multiple times. You refused. This is trespassing. The dispatcher said officers were on their way and would be there within 15 minutes. Jessica spent that entire time frantically texting Mom and Tyler, then actually tried to seduce me out of calling the cops. She offered to introduce me to all her hot friends and help me meet girls and get dates if I'd just let her stay for a few weeks. When the police officers arrived, two of them, both very professional, Jessica immediately tried playing the victim card. She told them we'd had a family misunderstanding and she was just visiting her brother for a few days. The officers asked to see any documentation showing she lived there. Lease agreement, mail, utility bills, anything. Obviously, she couldn't provide a single piece of evidence. They very clearly told her she needed to gather her belongings and leave the premises immediately. Jessica started crying real tears this time, not the fake ones, saying she had nowhere to go and was scared to be alone. One officer actually looked sympathetic until she mentioned that she'd been staying there for a few days without the homeowner's permission. Ma'am, if you don't have explicit permission to be here and your name isn't on any legal documents for this residence, you need to leave right now, or you'll be arrested for criminal trespassing. It took her almost 2 full hours to pack up all her belongings. She kept forgetting items and trying to drag the process out as long as possible. Finally, the officers told her they'd arrest her immediately if she wasn't completely gone within 30 minutes. Before she left, she looked me dead in the eye with pure hatred and said, "You're going to seriously regret this decision. Family doesn't forget when you screw them over like this." Then she keyed my truck on the way out, leaving a long scratch down the entire passenger side. The very next morning, I had a locksmith come out and change every single lock on the property. Front door, back door, garage, even the windows. Cost me $1,100, but it was worth every penny for the peace of mind. I also had him check to make sure Mom didn't have any other copies of keys I didn't know about hidden somewhere. I also went ahead and installed a complete security system with cameras covering every entrance and motion sensors throughout the house. If anyone tried to break in again, I'd have everything recorded in high definition. Mom called that evening, absolutely furious, and screaming about how I'd traumatized Jessica and destroyed the family with my selfishness. Apparently, Jessica had shown up at Mom's place completely hysterical, claiming I'd called the cops on her for absolutely no reason and had physically threatened her. Complete and utter nonsense. She had nowhere else to go, Michael. How could you be so cruel? She could have gone to Tyler's apartment. Tyler's apartment is way too small for 2 people. Then maybe she should have thought about that before she started stealing packages and getting kicked out of every place she's stayed. She made one mistake. Everyone makes mistakes sometimes. Some mistakes have serious consequences. This is hers to deal with. Mom tried guilting me with elaborate stories about how Jessica was sleeping in her car and scared and alone on the streets. I found out later from Tyler that Jessica was actually staying with some older guy she'd met on a sugar daddy website, so the whole sob story was complete lies designed to manipulate me. Tyler was absolutely furious with me too. Apparently, Jessica had convinced him that I was abandoning family and being a heartless monster who cared more about money than blood relatives. He sent me this incredibly long text message about how success had changed me into a completely different person and how I was becoming exactly like our deadbeat father. The real shock came exactly 4 days later. I got home from work around 7 p.m. to find my back gate forced open and my workshop completely broken into. They'd stolen approximately $2,800 worth of tools, including some vintage motorcycle restoration equipment I'd inherited from my grandfather that was completely irreplaceable. My brand new security cameras had caught everything in crystal clear high definition. Jessica and some guy I didn't recognize systematically loading my stuff into a pickup truck at 1:30 in the morning. They knew exactly what they were looking for and where to find it. I called the police immediately and pressed full charges for breaking and entering, theft, and destruction of property. When they arrested Jessica 6 hours later, she had the audacity to claim she was just taking what she was rightfully owed, since I'd ruined her entire life by not letting her stay. The guy with her turned out to be Devin. Apparently, they'd gotten back together specifically to rob me as payback for calling the cops on her. Both of them got charged with multiple felonies. Jessica spent 3 nights in county jail before Mom somehow scraped together the $5,000 bail money she couldn't afford. That's when the real family civil war erupted and got completely out of control. Mom went absolutely nuclear, calling every single relative we had to tell them her twisted version of events where I'd sent my own sister to jail for asking for help. She painted Jessica as this innocent victim, and me as some heartless monster who'd rather see family living on the streets than give up a spare bedroom. Tyler stopped talking to me entirely and blocked me on all social media. He posted on Facebook about how blood means nothing to some people, and how he was ashamed and disgusted to share DNA with someone so cold and calculating. My aunts and uncles started blowing up my phone with angry calls and texts. Cousin Danny called me a piece of garbage human being who'd forgotten where I came from. Uncle Bob said I was no better than my worthless father for abandoning family when they needed me most. The truly ironic thing is that none of these people had offered to help Jessica themselves. They were all quick to judge me for not taking her in, but none of them had opened their homes to her either. It's easy to be righteous and judgmental when you're not the one being asked to sacrifice. I ended up blocking most of them and changing my phone number entirely. I focused on work, started hitting the gym more seriously to deal with stress, and slowly worked on rebuilding my stolen tool collection. Life was actually pretty peaceful without the constant family drama and manipulation, but I had absolutely no idea how much worse things were about to get for all of them. For about 10 weeks, I didn't hear much from anyone in the family. I was steadily rebuilding my workshop, dating an amazing girl named Sarah I met at a vintage motorcycle show, and generally living my absolute best life. The criminal case against Jessica and Devin was slowly moving through the court system, and I'd probably eventually get some restitution money to replace my stolen tools. Then Tyler called me completely out of nowhere one night around 11 p.m., sounding desperate and utterly defeated. Dude, everything's completely falling apart. I really need help, and I don't know what else to do. Apparently, Mom had been covering absolutely everything for Tyler. Rent, car payment, insurance, phone bill, college tuition, groceries, spending money, everything. But after paying Jessica's bail money and expensive legal fees, Mom was completely and utterly broke. Like maxed out credit cards and can't make minimum payments broke. Tyler had been kicked out of school for unpaid tuition and was about to lose his apartment in 2 weeks. His car had gotten repossessed the previous week because Mom couldn't make the payments. He'd finally gotten a job at Target, but he was only making $11.50 an hour working maybe 25 hours per week. I'm about to be completely homeless, man. I've literally got nowhere to go and no way to pay for anything. What about staying at Mom's place temporarily? Richard's moving in officially next month and there's absolutely no space for me there. What about Jessica? Maybe you guys could find a place together. She's in a really bad situation right now and can't help anybody. Turns out Jessica's sugar daddy had dumped her the moment he found out about the criminal charges and upcoming court dates. She was back with Devin, but his parents had permanently banned them both from the apartment complex after the package theft incident. They were basically squatting in an abandoned house with a bunch of other sketchy people doing sketchy things. I know you're mad at all of us, and you have every right to be, but I'm really desperate here, and I've finally learned my lesson. I just need help getting back on my feet so I can be independent. I almost felt genuinely sorry for him. Tyler wasn't nearly as malicious as Jessica. He was just weak, spoiled, and easily manipulated. But I remembered how quickly he turned on me when Jessica fed him her lies and manipulation. What about all that stuff you posted on Facebook about me being cold and heartless? I was angry and hurt. I didn't really mean those things. You said I was a piece of garbage who was no better than our deadbeat father. I was defending Jessica because I thought,
I thought you were being too harsh and unreasonable. And now? Long pause where I could hear him breathing heavily.
Now I think maybe she wasn't telling me the complete truth about what really happened. Tyler literally begged me to let him stay in my extra room, promising he'd pay rent as soon as he could save up enough money. He'd keep the place absolutely spotless, wouldn't bring people over, would help with yard work and household chores. Basically everything Jessica had promised, but never had any intention of actually doing. I was honestly tempted for a moment. Tyler had always been the least problematic of my siblings, and part of me felt bad about his situation. But I remembered how easily he'd believed Jessica's lies and turned against me. I'll think about it and get back to you, I said, knowing I probably wouldn't. That was over a month ago. I never called him back. Last week, I found out exactly why Jessica had been so quiet lately, and it was worse than I'd imagined. Sarah and I were having a nice dinner at this upscale steakhouse downtown, celebrating my recent promotion to senior project manager, when I spotted a familiar face sitting alone at the bar. It was my cousin Danny, the same one who'd called me garbage and said I'd forgotten where I came from. He looked absolutely terrible. Really, really terrible. Lost significant weight, exhausted eyes with dark circles, completely defeated posture. He saw me looking and walked over to our table looking like he wanted to disappear into the floor. Mike, hey man, can I please talk to you for just a minute? Sarah could immediately sense this was serious family drama and diplomatically said she'd wait by the car. After she left, Danny sat down heavily and looked like he was about to have a complete breakdown. I owe you the biggest apology of my entire life. Absolutely massive. For what specifically? For believing every single one of Jessica's lies. For calling you horrible names? For turning the whole family against you. For everything. Turns out Danny had let Jessica stay at his place for just a few days about 6 weeks ago when she showed up crying about being homeless. She'd systematically stolen his PlayStation 5, his girlfriend's expensive jewelry, and $350 in cash from his roommate's emergency savings jar. When they confronted her about the theft, she claimed she was just borrowing everything and would pay it all back with money from her successful modeling contracts. She's been telling everyone she's a professional model, but I did some digging online. She's been doing really sketchy amateur adult content with seriously questionable people for maybe $40 per video. Really disturbing stuff. My stomach completely dropped. Jessica had always been wild and made poor choices, but this was a horrifying new low even for her. It gets so much worse. She's been using your name all over town, telling people she's your sister, and you're this incredibly successful project manager who'd vouch for her character. She tried to get multiple credit cards using your address as her permanent residence. That perfectly explained all the weird mail I'd been getting. Credit card applications, collection notices, and various financial documents with Jessica's name, but my address. Danny, why are you telling me all this now? Because she robbed my 87-year-old grandmother 2 weeks ago. My blood went completely cold hearing those words. Danny's grandmother is 87 years old and lives alone in a senior community on a fixed income. Jessica had somehow convinced the sweet old lady that she was Danny's serious girlfriend and desperately needed to borrow money for a family medical emergency. The grandmother gave her $750 in cash, probably her entire monthly grocery and medication budget. When Grandma called me asking if I'd gotten the emergency money for my surgery, I wanted to absolutely strangle Jessica with my bare hands. But she'd already completely vanished by then. Where is she right now? County jail. Got arrested for shoplifting at a pharmacy, trying to steal expensive cosmetics and prescription drugs. But here's the really messed up part. She listed you as her emergency contact on all the paperwork. That's when Danny told me the real reason he'd approached me tonight. Mom had been desperately calling around to every family member asking for money to bail Jessica out again and pay for yet another expensive lawyer. But here's the thing. Absolutely everyone was completely broke now. Tyler had been evicted from his apartment and was literally sleeping in his car in a Walmart parking lot, showering at a 24-hour gym. Mom had maxed out every single credit card she had and taken a second mortgage on her house to pay for Jessica's previous legal fees. Richard had finally gotten completely fed up with all the constant drama and moved out permanently, taking his steady income with him. Several family members had been personally burned by Jessica's stealing and lying and weren't willing to help anymore. Your mom's about to lose the house, Mike. She's 3 months behind on mortgage payments and can't come up with the money without Richard's help. What exactly do you want me to do about any of this? Everyone's desperately hoping. We're all hoping you might be willing to help out. I know we all treated you terribly, but you're literally the only person who's got money saved up. I actually started laughing out loud right there in the restaurant. People at nearby tables started staring. Let me get this completely straight. For months, you've all been calling me selfish and heartless for not enabling Jessica's destructive behavior. Now that she's robbed half the family, and you're all broke from cleaning up her messes, you want me to save everyone? Danny looked absolutely ashamed and couldn't make eye contact. I know exactly how it sounds. It sounds like natural consequences. Natural consequences for consistently terrible decisions. What about your mom, though? She's not a genuinely bad person. She just loves Jessica way too much. She chose Jessica over me every single time for years. She chose to enable a drug-addicted thief instead of setting reasonable boundaries. These are the direct results of her choices. Danny left our table looking completely and utterly defeated. I felt slightly bad for about 30 seconds, but mostly I felt completely vindicated. I'd been absolutely right about Jessica from the very beginning. The desperate phone calls started the very next day and continued relentlessly. First Mom, then Tyler, then relatives I hadn't heard from in literally years, all with the exact same story. Everyone was in complete crisis, and I was supposedly the only one who could possibly help them. Mom's call was definitely the hardest one to listen to. She was crying uncontrollably, finally admitting that she'd been completely wrong about Jessica, desperately begging me to help save the house from foreclosure. She'd refinanced everything she owned to pay for lawyers and bail money, and now she was facing losing her home in just 6 weeks. I know I made absolutely terrible mistakes, Michael. I know I chose wrong every single time. But I can't lose this house. It's literally all I have left in the world. Where's Jessica right now? Still sitting in jail. She can't make bail this time because it's set at $12,000 and nobody has that kind of money. Good. Maybe she'll finally face some real consequences for her actions. Please, I'll do absolutely anything you want. I'll cut her off completely and permanently. I'll never ask you to help her again for any reason. Just please help me save the house. Tyler's call was even more pathetic and heartbreaking. He was literally living in his car, showering at a 24-hour gym, working part-time at Target and delivering food through apps, but still couldn't afford even the cheapest apartment. He'd lost 25 pounds and looked like a homeless person, according to Mom. I'll sign any contract you want, man. I'll pay you back every single penny with interest. I just desperately need help getting an apartment so I can get my life back together. The extended family calls were absolutely fascinating to listen to. Uncle Bob, who'd lectured me extensively about family values and obligations, was now asking for help with his own bills because he'd loaned Jessica money that she'd obviously never repaid. Cousin Danny needed help replacing everything Jessica had stolen from him and his roommates. Everyone had finally reached the exact same realization. I'd been completely right about Jessica from the very beginning. She was a lying, stealing, manipulative drug addict who systematically destroyed everything and everyone she touched. But it had taken them all getting personally burned and robbed to finally see the truth. For about 2 weeks straight, I got calls every single day. Voicemails full of apologies, promises, and increasingly desperate pleas for financial help. They offered to sign legal contracts, pay substantial interest, do whatever I wanted if I just helped them out of the massive hole Jessica had dug for the entire family. I listened to every single message carefully. I read every text message they sent, and then I systematically deleted them all without responding. Yesterday, I got the most satisfying phone call of my entire life. It was from Tyler, calling from Mom's house using her old landline because his phone had been shut off. Mike, I've got some major news. Jessica's been officially sentenced. She'd pled guilty to multiple serious charges: the theft from my house, the credit card fraud attempts, the robbery of Danny's elderly grandmother, plus a bunch of other crimes I didn't even know about. The judge gave her 14 months in state prison plus 200 hours of community service. Her public defender said even if she gets out early for good behavior, she'll still have to complete all the community service and pay full restitution to everyone she robbed, including you. How's Mom handling the news? Not well at all. She's finally accepted that Jessica's a genuine criminal, but she's still completely broke. The house goes into foreclosure next month unless she can somehow come up with $8,000. And how are you doing? I'm finally learning to actually take care of myself. Got a second job at a warehouse. Found a tiny room to rent for $380 a month. It's not much, but it's mine, and I'm paying for it myself. There was a very long pause where neither of us said anything. I know you don't owe any of us anything at all. I know we treated you like absolute garbage when you were the only one telling the truth. But if you ever find it in your heart to forgive us, Tyler. Yeah? I forgave you guys a long time ago. I just don't trust any of you anymore. Trust has to be slowly earned back through consistent actions. I completely understand. I'm going to earn it back somehow. I promise you that. Today, I'm sitting in my beautiful house, in my fully rebuilt workshop, surrounded by everything I worked incredibly hard for. Jessica's in prison exactly where she belongs.